I had a one-way ticket to Thailand. I was 23 years old. I was planning my Renounce the World trip. I had been traveling on and off for several years, settling in Colorado for a few months at a time to make some money to pay for my next trip. And it was about a month before this trip. I was with a few friends. It was October 3rd, 2000, so the leaves were changing. We went up to Rocky Mountain National Park to go see the changing leaves. We were 12,000 feet at Trail Ridge Road at an overlook, and it was a beautiful day when we got there. Classic Colorado style, like they say, wait 5 minutes and the weather will change. The weather started to change. It got cloudy, gray, started hailing. We saw a lightning strike in the distance, and we said we should probably walk back to the car. So that's the last thing I remembered before the next lightning strike hit me and my friend. So I was, not only did I have a near-death experience, but it was initiated by being struck by lightning.
Hi, if you're within the sound of my voice, you are watching or listening to the Sterling Spin podcast. I am so excited to bring you a new spin on everyday living for your well-being. I am inviting you into the studio, and today I introduce you to one of our sponsors. I'm Liz Sterling. Welcome to the Sterling Spin podcast. With me in the studio is Peter Berv, and he is a human design reader, a consultant, an educator. He has over 25 years experience in the healing arts, in sound, and spiritual guidance through human design readings, teaching, and his work as a mentor. Peter helps people discover their blueprint, putting that in quotes for you, blueprint for living with clarity, purpose, and authenticity. And you'll be able to learn more from Peter right now. Welcome to the program.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So I went to your website and I saw that you use the word shaman, shamanistic practices, shamanistic approaches to understanding the human condition, and the human design, sound, spirituality, mentoring, human design. Put this all together for us. Like, how did it happen? And how is it relevant to what you offer people in the work that you're doing in the world?
Sure thing. Yeah, great question. Yeah, that word is kind of a buzzword these days and can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I like to use the word shamanic arts because these are different tools that we can utilize to improve our lives. So I was introduced to the shamanic arts in high school. I kind of had a lot of mystical and spiritual inclinations at a young age, and then I was fortunate enough to be introduced to someone who identified themselves as a shaman as well. So I apprenticed with someone starting in high school before it kind of got very popular in the mainstream, so I didn't have a lot of comparison. And that was an introduction basically to taking accountability for our life and learning to navigate many worlds within and without, to understand, let's say, the mechanics of life. So to me, a shamanic artist or a shamanic practice means we're able to navigate these different worlds within and without with awareness to take accountability for our own life and to be in harmony with all creation.
You use the word accountability twice.
Hmm.
If I want to be accountable in life, what am I accountable for and to whom?
Part of being conditioned in life means we might end up projecting things onto other people. So once we take accountability or ownership for what's ours and what's not ours.
OMG, I just learned about this in a nonviolent communication course that I took. So if you're studying nonviolent communication,
Hmm.
the first thing you have to understand is if you're with someone and they're reacting, you will bring your own history, your own experience, your own past, your own projections right into the situation. And if you understand that, it lets you take a step back so that you can see that person, place, or thing for what it is and not for what your emotional reaction is.
Sure,
That
sure.
feels like accountability.
Well, this is why I love the human design system, because it gives us a framework to recognize what is yours and what's not yours. Specifically, the open centers in this body graph that the human design system reveals, the open centers are where we take things in. So, and that's what we call our conditioning. It's where our sensitivity is. But most people are identified with what they're taking in and they think it's theirs and then they become reactionary with it.
Mm-hmm.
So by recognizing these signposts in this framework of what we're taking in and being like, that's not mine, that's just where I'm here to feel the other, and there's another place inside me, another framework, another map that I can use to identify how to meet that as myself.
So there sounds like there's a lot of awareness in here that I'm going to become aware. And you used in the beginning the inner worlds, the outer worlds. The inner world, if I'm hearing you correctly, is the conditioned part of us that has had experiences that have built up, that have given me a perspective of the world. And that's how I meet the world. I meet the world from this inner place of all that conditioning, all that subconscious, all that's unconscious, all my wishes, dreams, and desires. And because there's a reactive nature to it, I can pull it back and get to some truer place for me to then see the world through different eyes.
Sort of. In that system, it shows us that we have a fixed wiring, which we call our definition, and then there's our openness. And so it's kind of like our nature and our nurture. What our fixed wiring is that we put out. That's our natural frequency that we always carry throughout life. And
Is it
then
good or bad or both?
it's neither. All of these things can operate on a spectrum. So that's also in terms of being a shamanic artist that can navigate these realms when you can identify the spectrum of how a center can express or a channel can express or any of the elements that you can look at in the design in the chart, then you can identify a behavior or an experience in life that even goes beyond accountability or it's awareness of what it actually is
So
versus
fixed
what we think it
channels.
is.
So there are fixed channels that are habitual and conditioned. And then there's more freedom or other ways in which we can express ourselves. So the fixed channels, and then there are, what is the other one called? Fluid?
The
Open,
openness.
open channels. So,
Yeah,
okay, we're referring to something called human design.
sure.
Before I hold up an image of what a human design is part of, I understand it's the integration of various different approaches that have been used uh, for centuries. And these approaches are 4 or 5 or 6 that are put together. So
Mm.
let's go specifically about what the human design incorporates, and then what can it give someone to help them understand their own human design?
It's a system that was received. We say it has mystical roots, but very practical application. So basically, we could say this gentleman in the 80s had a mystical experience and received this, and this whole system, and and it's a combination of the I Ching, Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah system, astrology, and the chakra system. And then there's elements, those are like the esoteric elements of it. And then there's the more exoteric elements of it, like biochemistry, physics, uh,
Genetics.
genetics,
Right.
and it all comes together. So when I found this, I was like, you can't just throw all that stuff together and make up something new.
Right.
And so I was very skeptical when I heard about that. And then I eventually got a reading myself here in Boulder 16 years ago in 2010. And I got kicked out of the guy's house after 5 hours because I could not stop asking questions. I could not believe how much he could see in detail and things putting into words that I didn't even know I could explain myself. So it validated so many things about me. So ultimately, it's not just a jumble.
Validates. So if I have behaviors that I'm not crazy about, but I keep doing them over and over again, in this reading, you finally get to understand, like, why am I doing that again?
Right.
Because there's a system that you develop in order to take these open centers and you fill them up with the stuff that you need to do to survive in the world. But that may not be in your highest and your best good.
Ultimately, human design, if we could even it down to its most simple and practical application, is it's a decision-making tool. So it shows us the place in our body where we're here to make decisions, not the mind, but in the body. Gives us very specific signposts that we can recognize to trust ourselves. And so we also call it a no fault system, which is beautiful because everywhere you look in the world where people are pointing fingers and human nature is kind of always to place the blame somewhere else. So, or even on ourselves. So we always try to find a fault or a problem. And so what human design shows us is we've been trying to figure out life, make decisions from not that place that is the most authentic decision-making place. Once you put that in context, it takes all these things that we thought were problems in our life, and you just see it just, that's not really where you were meant to be making your decisions. So it automatically like sublimates all these potential problems and frustrations and resistance that we've been creating for ourselves.
It like takes the monkey off the back because a lot of things that I am aware of and that I do or have done or am becoming more aware of or taking accountability for, it's like a weight because I do it and then I go beat myself up for doing it. And then I end up doing it again and then I'll go beat myself. And that's just me. I mean, other people do different things. Some people just withdraw, or they isolate themselves, or they shut down. I just happen to respond the way I do. And
Exactly.
now I get to learn and learning those inner motivations and then being able to find a place within in order to pause and to feel and then to respond, have that ability to respond instead of reacting.
Exactly.
It like lets me sit in my chair,
Yeah.
which is really exactly what happened today. I ended up sitting in my chair. I got myself into the lotus position. I was like, Peter's here. Peter, here's the human design. Here's an image that comes when you have a reading with Peter, which I did. So, but now I don't feel so bad because we were together for 3 hours. And you're telling me you were with your reader for 5.
Oh no, I get
Okay,
yes.
I don't feel so. No, okay. This is very comprehensive, but you mentioned the I Ching is on the outer, and each one of these is relevant to a person's unique human design. And
So
then you've studied this.
this human design is showing us a matrix that all of us share. We all have in common. 9 centers, and then there's these 64 gates which come off these 9 centers. So we all have the same building blocks, just like in genetics. We all are working with the same amino acids and all that. So, but the way it gets imprinted
Mhm.
is entirely unique. So this is why sometimes we'll use the word blueprint, because it shows how we get imprinted, how and where we get imprinted, which creates our individuation, our uniqueness.
So this one is mine. It's the one that we did together. And why would you say to the listeners, the viewers, why would you say it's important to have something like this available to them? Can you specifically say what you feel the benefits are, or what you've seen, or a story of something that may have happened with someone, and of course, keep them anonymous, something that makes such a difference in a person's life? Because
Sure.
I think you've got lots of stories in 16 years of sharing this.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of one example which includes billions and billions of people for the last 90,000 years trying to make decisions from the mind. The mind is not meant to be the decision maker. The mind is layer upon layer upon layer of conditioned behaviors. It's not that the mind isn't a beautiful, powerful mechanism and tool that we have, but it's here to gather information. It's not here to make the decisions. So
Hmm. Wow. That is just worth pausing on for a second.
that's the story
Let
of
me think about
humanity.
how many everybody says. I'll think about it. I'll tell you what I think. This is what I think. We're so like, and many of us in the mind, and that's where we operate from, to open the doorway to come from another place, from an inner and deeper place. It feels fulfilling
Mhm.
rather than, oh, yeah, this is what I think I should do.
When we make decisions from our mind, we end up meeting resistance somehow. Resistance can look like a lot of different things, but it just kind of always feels like you're hitting the wall. The specific signs of resistance are frustration, bitterness, anger, and disappointment.
Hmm. I guess everybody's going to relate to one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to all of those
Yeah.
personally in one way or another, but more specifically, as since I'm a specific type called a generator or a manifesting generator, that has that would point more towards frustration being
Hmm.
my primary signpost of resistance. For you as a projector, your primary signpost would be bitterness. And so in terms of benefits, which is I think your question is, it helps us to navigate through life, to make decisions from the signs that our body is telling us, so we can find satisfaction, success, peace, surprise.
Mm.
That's the other side of those signs of resistance. So it's a decision making tool, practically speaking. And this might sound a little cliche, but it's also a path to self-love. But that is, I mean, yeah, it's cliche, but it's beautiful, because self-hatred is really the biggest disease of humanity.
I think it is. I am absolutely in agreement. I've looked at that. I wrote a poem about self-hatred, and I remember saying, and it was like I felt like I was in a vice grip. It's just like it locks you up so much, and it doesn't give you the ability to go into your own system and to be able to ascertain, from where shall I meet this moment.
Mm.
That's what happened to me since I met with you a couple weeks ago. um, I have paused more. I've waited more. I've reflected more. Although I am remembering a time where I came from no, that's not the way I think it should be done. I remember saying that. No, I don't want to do it that way. What do you think I met? Resistance. And I was like, just take a minute. Should I do this or not? Do I want to do that? I do feel I've been living more in a question mark. rather than, in that like yes that I regret, it's been a question mark. But I have this cute thing that I say. I say a question mark's a good place to be because ultimately it'll become an exclamation point. It'll find its way to find its center. So it's
Naturally.
okay to
Yeah.
be in the question mark. Just sit in it.
Yes. That is my spiritual practice, basically, is practicing being till till it comes. That's a lot of what human design teaches us, is I would call it like a path of surrender in a way, to because the mind is always trying to control outcomes and initiate things. What this path shows us, or what the system shows us, is that if you take a step back, everything will just come to you.
Right.
So
Just
you
take
just have to learn to wait for it, and it's going to be longer than your mind probably wants.
So let's take a step back for a moment because I want to identify who we are, what we're doing. You're listening to the Sterling Spin podcast. I'm Liz Sterling. I'm going to ask you to please subscribe. And once you subscribe, you'll see a little bell, the notification bell. If you hit that bell, it will give you notification every Sunday when we drop a new show. And I promise you, we have some fabulous guests coming up and interviews that you will be surprised. So plan every Sunday to get notification by subscribing, and you will find out who's sitting in this chair that Peter Berv is in today. Peter has come on as a sponsor. I am so happy and grateful that we have this opportunity to make available to our audience these human design readings, and that you can help people to know themselves. Now, I heard in my head when you were saying that someone is thinking, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I want you to know it's worth it. For however many moments, days, months, or years that you have to enjoy your life, knowing yourself more is definitely worth it. So, how do you get to Peter? It's easy. PeterBerv.com. That's Peter, BERV.com. That'll take you to him, and you just go right over to human design, and you will be brought into a realm that is absolutely fascinating. And thank you so much for believing in the Sterling Spin podcast and for the relationship that we've developed for you to come in as a sponsor. I am so truly, truly grateful. And I love people who come into our studio with stories. If you have a unique story, something that you feel others would appreciate and value, and of course, especially if we can learn from you, contact me directly at my email address at sterlingspin@gmail.com. And I would be happy to speak with you. Just say someone interesting, and I'll get back to you. I love human design. It definitely is a whole lot of information. Fortunately, you record the
Hmm.
interviews and then you get a little more information after, as I did. And I like that. I like that your background includes music and herbs and energy work, sound, the shamanic. But I also know that your journey included something that may have led to the mystical parts of it. You had a near death experience.
I did in the year 2000.
Everybody likes to talk about and hear about NDEs.
Hmm.
So, your almost 26-year ago near death experience.
I had a one-way ticket to Thailand. I was 23 years old. I was planning my Renounce the World trip. I had been traveling on and off for several years, settling in Colorado for a few months at a time to make some money to pay for my next trip. And it was about a month before this trip. I was with a few friends. It was October 3rd, 2000, so the leaves were changing. We went up to Rocky Mountain National Park to go see the changing leaves. We were 12,000 feet at Trail Ridge Road at an overlook, and it was a beautiful day when we got there. Classic Colorado style, like they say, wait 5 minutes and the weather will change. The weather started to change. It got cloudy, gray, started hailing. We saw a lightning strike in the distance, and we said we should probably walk back to the car. So that's the last thing I remembered before the next lightning strike hit me and my friend. So I was, not only did I have a near-death experience, but it was initiated by being struck by lightning.
You now call it initiation.
It was definitely an initiation.
You know it like in the moment? I mean, you're like, whoa.
Well, in the moment, I woke up right after, but I was incredibly confused because my nervous system was fried.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was firing. My nervous system wasn't firing correctly. So I was lying there. I was with a few other friends. They were huddling over us. I got hit with a friend together. So they were huddling over the two of us and protecting us from the hail and chanting a healing mantra. And I knew something bad happened, but I was pretty sure it happened to me, but even that wasn't connecting. So I remember that they got me into the back seat of a car, and that's the last thing I remember before I went to the other side for a few hours. And it was during that time I was uh, in this ocean of love, ocean of oneness, uh, and expansiveness. And I think my heart didn't stop, but I think my nervous system was just so scrambled. I just kind of had to leave for a while to let everything recalibrate. And then these two beings, these, I guess we could call them angels, but there was these orbs of these presences, these light, two presences of light came here, and they basically just said, it's time to go back to your body.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I like it here. What's back there? And they're like, nothing to see here.
Wow.
And they said, no, it's time to go back to your body. You still have work to do. And the next thing and then they kind of I felt like they turned me around and kind of kicked me out the door. It was sort of the feeling. And then I started descending back into feeling like I was getting more compressed back into this temporary form.
Wow, look at how you did that. You literally showed that compression.
That's what it felt like.
Because this all expansiveness, everything oneness, then you had to have your consciousness and everything like come back into the body.
Mm-hmm.
Is what you're describing. You're describing the return into the body.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it
Wow.
and just with the overlap with human design, I could feel this like imprinting, like I'm going back into my very narrow, temporary, specific imprinting. This little teeny box that you get kind of put into, and then it taught me a lot about the soul,
Mm-hmm.
in the soul journey. And so even though I had this like, it's time to go back to your body and the conversation or telepathic connection with these beings, there was much more of a transmission that happened in that experience. Because I feel like it did something to my nervous system. It once you experience that love, that unconditional love of creation and unity, it changes you. and it so I feel like I learned a million things in that brief little window.
When you said it changes you,
She survived. She got the burn. She got burned. She got the lightning actual strike. I just got I got thrown with. She's fine. She was teaching a dance class a few months later, and
wow. You said something about the soul's journey, but you also said something about coming back into the imprint.
mm-hmm.
So whatever was imprinted for your soul, that was still there. And I got like wide-eyed, when you said that. I was watching myself and I was like, oh my goodness, we have a blueprint.
Yeah.
So you went out there, you were all one with everything, had that unconditional love experience. But then when you got back into the body, you had took up the blueprint again. And so, of course, you learned a million gazillion things. I mean, that's what it sounds like. What we also experienced is there's something that's part of my design, but it's also a blueprint. And what you see is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of it and it's still there. So, what have you done to like stretch the space that you live in? Because you compressed. But
Well, it
how do
took
you,
about it took a I'd say it took a good 20 years to integrate that experience. The first several years were like I couldn't tell if it was a blessing or a curse. It was a very much like, why me? Like, why did this just happen to me? What am I supposed to do with this? What does that mean? I have work to do.
hmm hmm
That it can,
Yeah, that's a bird. That's a
at
lot
23
to
years old,
carry.
that feels like a lot.
Yeah, it is.
um, so, I mean, I guess I'd have to tell you like my story really, but I mean, I, I, I took time to be with myself, and I became a monk for a few years. I lived in India. I lived in Crestone. I lived in ashrams and dedicated my life to my spiritual development. And eventually the work was not about getting out of the body. It's about embodiment. So it ends up coming really having a nice full circle with the human design work, because it's about embodiment.
hmm
So, and that was the big takeaway really from that experience, and why I prefaced it by saying, "Oh, I was traveling for a few years. I had this one-way ticket for my Renounce the World trip, because that all changed."
Wow, of course it did.
The message was, you came here for something. It's not about trying to avoid it or run away from it. It's even okay if you forget all that cosmic blissful stuff. What did you come here to do? It's okay to forget. Come here and embody and live out this blueprint that you came here to do. So, I mean, that started with, why don't I just get an apartment and a job and start from there? You
Instead
know?
of running off on that one-way
Yeah.
ticket,
Yeah.
come back into the body, come back into the moment, come back into being with you. I mean, with
Mm.
yourself, because you had to meet yourself again on a new level. Everything was new for you. I love that you're helping people, that you are making a difference. I remember when I was with you, you were like, I had this woman who had a dream, and in the dream, she was told to find this man named Peter because he was going to work with her and be her mentor. And I spoke with her for 3 minutes, and she's with me for the next year doing a mentorship program. So that's what happens. Like, there is this mystical, almost magical attraction, is how I felt when I met you.
If you are feeling at a crossroads, human design is something that you can apply to everything. Like I was saying, there's mystical roots in the way that it was received, but practical application. So business, parenting, relationships, washing the dishes. But it's because it's about decision making. So if you're at a place where you're feeling like your process of decision making keeps hitting these same blocks, again, whether it's raising the kids, or stuff in your partnership, or just with yourself, or it can really give this validation and context and framework for how to navigate through that, and as in the most authentic way. It's not about becoming something, it's about undoing all the stuff and coming back to what was always there. And so it gives this really beautiful framework for that. So, like Liz said, you can find me at my website, peterberv.com, B as in boy, ERV as in Victor. And then all my
Verb,
other,
I think it's verb backwards,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah, yeah.
the verb is like to go, to do, and you're turning it backwards so you get to go in and be. I made that up.
I like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Berv, verb.
Verb,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love playing with words.
I do too. I love
Uh,
playing with you. Thank you so much for coming into the studio, for being here today, and for joining us on the Sterling Spin.
My pleasure.
And
Thank
being
you.
our sponsor. Yay!
Yay.
Until the next time you are within the sound of my voice, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sterling Spin podcast. I'm Liz Sterling. Be well, be blessed, keep spinning toward tomorrow today. Bye.